While most entrepreneurs are probably starting from a point of disadvantage, they may find comfort in the fact that half of all Fortune 500 companies were actually created during a crisis. From Microsoft to Walt Disney to FedEx and even Airbnb. This morning we talk about the vibe and opportunities in the startup scene with Villgro Philippines CEO and co-founder Priya Thachadi. He joins us live. Hi Priya, thanks for joining us.
Hi Mimi, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
All right, first of all, why Villgro? Does it mean, it takes a village to grow a startup? Is that why you're called Villgro?
Absolutely. That's really what it is. It does take a village to grow. And also we will help you grow if if we work with startups.
All right. So Villgro is a social enterprise incubator and investor. Why don't you give us your street cred? I mean, how much funds have you raised for your startups? How many startups are incubating? What's the success rate?
Yeah, absolutely. So Villgro is quite a young player in the Philippines, but it is a global brand. Villgro is originally from India, where we have been supporting social entrepreneurs for the last 20 plus years. And we've invested in more than 400 enterprises in India, Africa, and here in the Philippines, where we're just starting. And our focus really, Mimi, is to fund and mentor very early stage entrepreneurs who are really focused on solving a social or a climate issue. And as you rightly said, they do need a lot of support, especially at the start. And just listening to your previous segment, as all of this economic turmoil is happening all around us, entrepreneurs at the early stages really need support to validate their business models and, get that crucial funding to get started, and then really help them get to that stage where they can then scale up. And that's where Villgro really comes in. We come in with a little bit of seed funding and then work with them hands-on to get them to that goal and vision and mission that they have.
How many startups, Philippine startups, are under your portfolio today?
Yeah, so we've been operating since 2019, and today we have a portfolio of about 50 plus companies. At any given point of time in a year, we support 35 companies, and we provide them sort of a mix of grants and those who have high potential. Then we sort of pass them on to investments.
Priya, I'm very curious. How is the mood like these days? I mean, are you seeing a lot happen in the space today, or not so much? Because everybody's talking about the so-called tech wreck happening in Silicon Valley and other parts of the world, having ripple effects in the startup ecosystem. And they're saying, all of these tech giants laying off thousands of workers could be a sign of leaner times for startups.
Absolutely. You're right in that's really the global trend. But if we look at what has happened in the Philippine startup ecosystem over the pandemic, we've actually seen a significant growth. 2021 was the year with sort of maximum funding ever raised by Philippine tech startups. And I think that trend will continue because there's a significant growth period that we've seen given by a lot of the country, going more digital. When we look at sort of social enterprises or impact entrepreneurs, this is of course a subset. And we've seen them really been affected in the pandemic, in the crisis, but they've really been resilient. And we are seeing more and more entrepreneurs from all around the country really joining in to figure out how to solve the biggest social and climate issues in the country. And that's really encouraging. So despite all of the sort of gloomy news, I think there are resilient entrepreneurs of all ages who are really throwing their hat in the ring and saying, okay, there are huge problems to solve, both in sort of social development as well as climate. And we're going to figure out how to do it. Doesn't matter what the issues are, true entrepreneurial spirit, they are pursuing these solutions. But of course, they do need support to make those, visions a reality.
And to make any vision a reality will require a lot of money, I guess. One of the most important questions is, how is access to private capital these days when you've got interest rates going up all over the world? Have investments softened already? I mean, are check size generally smaller and on lower valuations?
Absolutely. So I think the tech startup scene has really sort of, as I said, blossomed, and we've seen a lot of very interesting things happen there where, I think we haven't seen these type of valuations, et cetera, before in the Philippines. On the impact investing side, it's still very new. I think there is definitely a gap between what the entrepreneurs are seeking and what's really available in the market, right? And that really is that risk appetite that you were sort of referring to, that they do need certain types of capital and certain ticket sizes. And a lot of the capital sits a little bit further ahead, larger ticket sizes. And so what's happening is that there is a gap. So entrepreneurs, after they receive a lot of grants, maybe support from government, then they're really kind of looking and not really finding as many supporters or investors until they get to maybe, they want to raise $1 million plus. And that especially is a huge problem for social entrepreneurs in this country. And that's really, something that we have to solve together as an ecosystem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you don't just incubate and fund just any startup. You choose the startups that you support, that they have a social impact. So could you give us, examples of some of the startups that you support, maybe in the field of agri and women? Because I know that those two are your focus areas.
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually, because of this crisis, we put together a group of, people who really want to support impact entrepreneurs, called an Impact Pioneers Network. And we've made a couple of, investments starting in sort of agri and supporting entrepreneurs. So one is really a fantastic women-led business in Mindanao called Green Habits. Really helping small farmers, indigenous farmers get their produce to market. And Cropital, which is a peer-to-peer sort of a lending company that's again supporting entrepreneurs. But we're very, very excited in the lineup of women-led businesses that we have. We are working with a fantastic company called Magwai, which has, a circular product, a reef-safe sunscreen, which is amazing for anyone who's heading to the beach this holiday season. So these are the type of businesses that really have impact at its core, but they of course also have, and they're building a profitable business model. And I am so excited, Mimi, about the type of women entrepreneurs I'm seeing in the market. They really sort of give me hope, and especially the passion behind solving a climate or a social issue, but also building, really solid businesses.
Of course, women, go girls. Just very interesting to note. It's sort of comforting to know that your business model is based in India, that you started there, because India is known as the home of unicorns. In fact, I understand you guys just overtook China in the number of new unicorns produced in the first half of this year. I'm looking at a number. India actually, first 6 months of this year, added 14 new unicorns, whereas China just added 11. Of course, still far from the U.S., which added 138. But I mean, what are some of the best practices that we can learn from India's playbook that maybe can help, Philippine startups propel them to unicorn status as well? Because we don't see a lot of unicorns here in Manila. Not yet.
I think, it's a great question. So I think one is that we have to really acknowledge that the Philippine startup ecosystem is very young. So I think, as I said, Villgro started out 20 years ago in India, where, there was already sort of tech investments, but social enterprise was already starting. Well, here we've really been sort of formalizing as an industry only over the last sort of 10 years or so. So one, we are very early, but of course, as you said, we don't need to repeat all of those mistakes. We can sort of leapfrog faster. I think one significant difference that I saw was that, here, as I mentioned earlier, there are lots of gaps in the ecosystem as the enterprises grow or as the startups grow. In India, today the situation that we have is that, we have a lot of grants to get you started, and then we have a whole bunch of angel investors, both individuals and institutions who are willing to take the risk that maybe a fund structure can't take, right? To really kind of help the entrepreneurs test out their models, figure out what can really scale up, so then they can go and get the larger institutional funding. And I think that's what we really need. We need more support at the early stages for the entrepreneurs. Of course, as you said, capital, I would say risk capital is really the key piece. We really need to be able to unlock risk capital that is local, that really believes in the entrepreneurs in the Philippines and say, hey, we're going to put in the seed funding so that you can test out what are the models. And then when you get that right sort of, product market fit, then you can really scale up your businesses. And that's the piece that is still kind of early. A lot of the funds are regional or global. I'm very excited to share that, in the last sort of 2 years, we've seen more local sort of venture capital firms, but there's still some gaps in the earlier, riskier sort of stages where we really need to back our Filipino startups.
All right, Priya, on that very optimistic note, thank you so much for joining us and for what you're doing for our Philippine startups. See you soon.
Thanks, Mary. Thanks. Great being here.